Defending Jacob is a new limited series on Apple TV Plus and stars Chris Evans, Michelle Dockery, and Jaden Martell, and is based on the book of the same name. And this is the story of Jacob Barber, a 14-year-old kid in middle school who is accused of murdering a fellow classmate. And there seems to be no other suspects who are coming to the scene, and there is even a fingerprint of Jacob's found on the body of this classmate. And Andy Barber, the assistant district attorney, and his father, is originally on the case of finding out who the murderer is and then pulled off because personal interest matters. And he is trying to figure out who the real murderer is in the process, along with his wife, Lori. Defending Jacob is a show that I actually quite liked. It's a really riveting, compelling piece of television. It's not a perfect piece of television by any means, it's got some issues in it, but they're not that many. I have one really big issue with it, but I'll get to it later. But I'm going to talk more about the positives first because I have a lot of those. For one, the acting is top notch. Chris Evans in this is, I think, the best he's ever been, and that is saying something considering he's been amazing in a lot of films recently, as you probably know him for the guy with the shield and the hammer later on. Those hand gestures were terrible, but he's so good in this show and he carries it wonderfully. He has a lot of scenes where he has to express a significant range of emotions, and it's great seeing him do it so well because I've seen him as an actor for many, many years now, and I've seen him go from performances that were amazing, performances that were not so great, and he's evolved so much as an actor over the last few years especially that I really have to hand it to him. Michelle Dockery is also wonderful in this. She has a very devastating role because she's essentially the one person who has a lot to do with children, and while Andy is the assistant district attorney and Jacob is the suspect, she's the one who's basically trying to put it all together and not lose her sanity in the process and try to hold on to a shred of normalcy in the process. It's a very saddening storyline in many ways, and as you watch this series and as you approach the ending, her storyline becomes a bit tragic too, and it was played wonderfully. Jacob, played by Jaden Martell, also terrific in this. He has, again, a lot of moments where he has to sort of play two sides of this character. On one hand, he is extremely affected by what's happened and he is constantly in fear of the verdict a trial will give him or what will end up being his life in prison maybe. And on the other hand, he is someone who is a little more cold, who's very distant from his family, exhibiting normal teenager, aspects of him, but with a darker side. And so both those things clash every now and then in the season, and both those things are addressed on the forefront. And I thought that made him also a very interesting character. There are some things with him, though, that did affect the pacing, which, now that I'm mentioning it, I may as well address my biggest problem with this entire season, which is sometimes it can get really, really slow, and it can become a bit of a drag, especially the middle couple of episodes. I'd say 4 and 5, and parts of 6 even, do tend to drag a bit. It's definitely the part which is like, oh, there's always one episode in the middle, which sort of just is there because they needed to fill out an 8 episode order, and that happens pretty often. I mean, one of the things that came up even in a review of the Defenders when the Netflix Marvel stuff was going on was like episode 5 was like the point where it was like, well, this is kind of a drag on things because the first 3-4 episodes were great, and then it just stopped for a minute, and then 6 was okay, and then 7 and 8 picked up. Same thing happens kind of here, and I thought that was definitely the least good part about it. Otherwise, the show is so compelling, well directed, and written, and even shot, by the way, that it keeps you engaged the entire time, and it constantly keeps you interested. Even J.K. Simmons is in this show, and he plays Jacob's grandfather, and he's in prison for a horrendous crime that he committed. And he plays his role wonderfully. He doesn't have a lot of screen time in this. And even then, when you're coming towards the end of the series and he has a more prominent role in things later on, what you start to see is like how chilling this man really is and what he's really capable of. And they pull off something really, really great with him too. And again, actually, speaking of chilling, there's a lot of chilling moments in this. There's a few moments in particular that I was on the edge of my seat. I was constantly thinking, oh my God, what's going to happen? And it made for some really, really riveting TV. I would say episode 7 is probably my favorite because it's the trial episode. And in a lot of ways, that's the episode you have to execute the best because the entire thing's been building up to that. And I think they did such a wonderful job with that. It didn't lose me for even a second. I was hooked to every single word, every single acting beat, and this is the peak of the direction of the entire series. There's a lot of great moments throughout it. And while there are some moments which I think could have benefited from a little more expansion, perhaps, or a little more explanation, they weren't exactly deal breakers. They were things that came up, though, which I thought, oh, that didn't get quite as well resolved as I thought it would. But, alright. So, yeah, it has some minor issues here and there. There are some moments which I thought could have been a lot better, and I think it could have been a little tightly paced, more tightly paced than it was. That being said, though, Defending Jacob is a really good season of television, and I highly recommend seeing it if you guys have Apple TV Plus. It's not the only show I've seen on Apple TV Plus, actually. I have seen a few more. I'll review those also along the way and talk to you guys about that too. But for now, I'm gonna give Defending Jacob a B plus. Guys, thank you very much for watching, and I also want to give a big shout out to everybody who watched the retrospective episodes that came up last week, the 3 Star Wars trilogy videos. It means a whole lot that you guys checked that out. It's a series that I've been wanting to start for a very, very long time, and I'm glad you guys enjoyed it so much. I saw a lot of comments from some social media posts even, of people sharing memories of the films. That was really, really awesome, so thank you very much. I also want to thank some of the new subscribers that have come on. Hello, everybody. I hope you guys like what you're seeing here and you continue to stay subscribed, and I hope more follow along the way. And just thank you in general. I mean, it's really awesome doing these videos, and I'm so glad a lot of you seem to enjoy them, and I can't wait to do more. I have some more videos coming on the way. Right now I'll be talking about The High Note and some other stuff. I've actually seen a few shows on Apple TV Plus. I might talk about them even though it's been a while, like Morning Show. I actually saw that, so might do a review on it. You guys are the best. Thank you very much as always for watching, guys. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.